Hello, everyone. Welcome to LLK. I think this is 62. That is Knit with Laura and Lola. I am Laura Nelkin. I'm a knitwear designer. I still live in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region, and I am joined by my alter ego, Lola. Lola's a little bit spicier than I am. I think I'm pretty fun, but she's really fun. And the two of us are going to entertain you for the next hour-ish or so. I have so much to share. I think we're going to go a little over. So if you are watching this live, you might be chatting in the chat thread. And if you are watching this later, you'll be able to leave comments below the video. If you're watching live, I try not to read the chatter thread too much because I find I get distracted very, very easily. But if you're in there now and you would like to introduce yourself and say where you are watching from, it is very fun for people to turn on that chat thread later and get to see where everybody is. I can see people from all over. Before we really get going, I want to explain a few things and then say something that's quite important. The first thing that I want to explain is if you have a question while I am doing the live, since I'm not reading the chatter thread, if towards the end, I will ask if there's any questions, and then I will look over at the chatter thread and see if there's any questions I can answer. So if you ask a question in that thread, it might not get answered, or one of the moderators, or if another person there knows the answer, maybe you can chime in and answer that person for you, but I'll have a time for questions at the end. And then the second thing is that I just want to send all of my love and safe vibes and smooth, mellow wind for everybody who is facing Hurricane Martin right now in Florida. A lot of you super sweetly have been checking in about my parents and how they're doing. They are on the east coast of Florida. They have battened down their hatches. They're not worried at all. I'm probably more worried than they are worried about themselves, but they have hurricane shutters and they've brought the plants inside and they are far away from the coast. So I'm sure that they're going to be fine, but there's going to be cleanup after this hurricane, and I know we're all thinking of everybody there and just wishing them the smoothest possible experience over the next 24-ish hours. So I know we're all glued to our weather apps as we're doing everything else. So thank you for joining me tonight. And I have a lot to share, some of which you know about. I am going to be sharing a little slideshow from my trip to the Aran Islands. I got back at the beginning of October. I was there for the last 10 days of September. So I've got, a whopping 117 photos to share with you about that trip. Max likes to think my photos for slideshows should be kept under 50. And the rock walls are really freaking nice there, and I couldn't get rid of any photos. So prepare yourself for a lot of rock wall photos, a lot of photos of happy knitters, and I'll just tell you a brief story of that trip. I'm also going to talk about what is on my needles, what is off my needles, like Rocks and Water, which I designed for our trip to the Aran Islands. I want to talk about Cowltopus with you. I almost forgot its own name. For a little while I was calling it Octocowl, and then we changed it to Cowltopus, and we also have Cowltober going on. So it's easy to get all of those words just a little bit confused and upside down and backwards, but I'm going to talk with you about Cowltopus. I know a few of you are working on finishing that tonight while you're watching me. I saw, like Susie said, she had 4 rows to go, so she's knitting on that right now. You're in the flow. By the time you get to those last 4 rows of Cowltopus, the first 16 rows I know were the hardest of Clue 1. And if you don't know what Cowltopus is, I'll give you a link below at the end. It's the mystery knit along that we are knitting to celebrate Cowltober, and it is never too late to join us. So if you hear me talking about Cowltopus tonight and you're like, I want to do that, join us. Less than 400 yards of DK weight yarn. I thought it would be fun to start with the magic 8-ball that I had made for Cowltopus. Did you know that you can get custom 8-balls made with anything that you want to say in them? Pretty freaking fun. So I found a place on Etsy that makes them. I'll give you a link to that below at the end too. And I gave them things to put on the die inside. I think I had to give 20 different options of things to put on the die inside. And we're just going to say, Magic 8 Ball, tell us your secret story. I have no idea what's going to pop up, so this is pretty fun. Let's go to the overhead. Oh my gosh. It says we can skip our gauge swatch. I don't think that could have been. Max is behind the camera being like, no knitters, bad knitters. I think we have to ask it something again because that's just wrong. I can't live with that. We can't. Oh, that's the good one. This is the juggle your yarn balls. So if I have some yarn balls. Should I try that? What could go wrong? Look, people are all like, yay, I hate gauge. Yes, I'm juggling my yarn balls. Yay. So we actually got juggle your yarn balls at the end of the Clue 1 video for Cowltopus, and I was like such a missed opportunity that I didn't grab the balls off of this octopus back here and try to juggle them. But there's rules in the video studio, and it turns out one of them is no juggling your yarn balls around the equipment. It stresses the videographer right on out, which is my favorite thing to do. Thank you very much. So where are we? I'm lost. I'm off on Magic 8 Ball land. There's more of those, so I'll be continuing to surprise you with what the Magic 8 Ball has to say. There's 20 options of what it could say to us in there. I see in the chatter that a few of you are like, yay, I hate gauge. One thing that y'all always ask me is what I am wearing in these lives. And what I am wearing is a t-shirt that I made for Cowltopus. It's got some kind of octopusy looking fabric that I found on Spoonflower. And then I am also wearing my Turnt. And Turnt is a Mobius cowl that I released last September. I believe it was last September's Lola's Choice kit. It is a Mobius, so it is worked from the center out in the round, and it is worked with 2 strands of yarn held together. And I'm just going to show you under the camera what yarns they are. One was a Le Petit Silk and Mohair, which is a 30% Mulberry Silk, 70% Super Kid Mohair. And the other yarn is a Creative Make It Tweed, which is this really cool tweed kind of novelty yarn, I guess you would call it. So when you look at the fabric of Turnt under the camera, you can see that you end up with this kind of like really frothy, tweedy fabric. And the reason that I'm telling you this is because since it is Cowltober, we're celebrating. Oh, let me show you my Cowltober little thing. It's Cowltober, yay! In Cowltober, we celebrate cowls for the month of October. And every day I have a different cowl that is on sale for 50% off. So today's cowl is Rocks and Water, which I'm about to show you and talk about in a few minutes. And I believe that Saturday's cowl is going to be Turnt because Rico, who makes the Make It Tweed, just came out with new colors of tweed. And so I'm going to have a limited number of kits in the shop on Saturday, and I'll send out an email when they are all up and ready. It might end up being Sunday if I don't, give me some grace. It all always gets done. But I want to show you underneath the camera the new colors. So I'm going to actually match these 2 colors together because they look so yummy and warm and fall-y together. And then there's this other really beautiful new color that's like this, got these lovely greens and tans in it. And I'm going to match that together with this dusty blue. And then I have a few other colors down in the studio. So I think we have 6 or 7 colors total. And it'll just be like a quick run of Turnt kits in the shop. I know a lot of you who knit that for Lola's Choice had a great time knitting it, have been wearing it a lot. They make great gifts. You can actually get 2 cowls out of one of these skeins, so you can go stash diving for another like silk mohair or something that you have around in stash to make a second one. And if you're on my mailing list, you will hear when those kits are out. It's just, I know I'm so excited about those new Make It Tweeds that I had to show you them. I don't normally always do that, but yay, something new. I love that. Other things. So one thing that I talk about when I do these lives is like what's on my needles and what's off my needles. So I am going to do some little swatches for the turns so that you can see what the colors are going to look like when they're knit together. So those are on my needles. The other thing that is on my needles is my Cowltopus, but we're going to talk about that in a second. I have another version of the November Lola's Choice kit on my needles, and I'm not going to show you that. I have another version of the Spain retreat design on my needles. I think by the time I go on that Spain trip in November, I'm going to have 3 versions of that design done for everybody to see. And I'm waiting to hear back from the yarn company. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do kits for everybody. I'm waiting to get details on that right now. So I can't show you that. Lots of teasing. What I can show you is my Cowltopus and where my Cowltopus is at, because Clue 2 launches tomorrow. And for the first time, I am knitting a mystery knit along with you all. And oh my gosh, I'm having such a good time messing with you all while we knit Cowltopus, because you have no idea what you're making. This is what Clue 1 looks like. We've had people guess things like a slipper, which I guess I could see, like if you seamed it up like this and put your foot inside it. I don't know, guys. It is not a slipper. You're knitting a cowl, I promise. I've had people guess a purse. Someone guessed a jock strap. For the first time in my life, I feel like I didn't design a mystery knit along that starts off looking like a thong. Although there was kind of like this strappy thing. Do you remember the strap at the beginning? I kind of have a little mini one. When it looked like this at the beginning, but yours was longer, it looked a little bit like a thong strap, I think a little bit. So this one that I'm knitting is in the Fiber MacGyver Blanket Octopus kit. And it's got a solid color for the MC, and then my contrasting color is changing as I'm going down. And I am going to start knitting on Clue 2 tomorrow as soon as it comes out, because we need to shoot the videos for Clue 3 on Monday before I go to Rhinbeck. And I need to have my Clue 2 done by then, because there's like one maneuver I need to do live on the Real McCoy to really show you how to do that. So there's always a method to my madness, and that's where I'm at with that. Things that I've noticed come up with Cowltopus where some people were a little stymied by the Judy's Magic cast on. And I did a little video on Instagram that I posted to Instagram and Facebook that showed the difference between Judy's Magic cast on and a Turkish cast on, and kind of like the similarities and differences between them. The upshot of that is you could use either cast on. When you work a Turkish cast on, you end up with just one less row in your knitting, and the middle row is just like a little bit like kind of loosey-goosey. It's a little bit looser. So some people, when they use that for a toe up sock, they'll kind of like tighten up that cast on afterwards to make that first row from the cast on look the same size as the other stitches. But since you're casting on 65 stitches for Cowltopus, it would take a long time to tighten up that whole row. And when you do Judy's Magic cast on, you're making a row on each needle when you're making that cast on, and it's just like a little bit tidier and tighter. The other thing that I noticed that people were doing with Judy's Magic cast on is they were just starting to knit in the round instead of working across all 131 stitches and then turning their work and working across 131 stitches. And as far as I can tell, almost everybody, people have had to rip out once or twice before they get it right, but almost everybody's gotten it. If you haven't gotten it, I would love if you would post in the Ravelry thread or in the Facebook group, and we will help you get going. It's once you understand that concept of turning at the end of the 131 stitches instead of continuing around so that you have a very clear right side and wrong side, you're going to have success working it. It just takes a little bit of time. I looked over at the chatter. I saw Robin say that she just realized she messed up because both ends are closed. So Robin, hopefully hopefully you weren't too far along and this helped you, which was my goal for showing this at this point, was to kind of catch anybody that maybe needed that little bit of help. I always rip out things at least 3 times when I get going knitting something. So don't be discouraged. I mean, who here ever just like casts on and starts knitting and has success with that first cast on? Hardly ever, right? So don't worry about it. If it takes you a little bit of time to get going, go easy on yourself. You can slow down the video. So there's that Clue 1 video that's about 40 minutes long. You can slow it down. You can rewatch sections. You can do it along with me. The biggest thing to remember is that I have a fewer number of stitches on my needles so that I can like fit things under the camera and teach everything that I need to teach you. Robin said she's only at row 13, so not a big deal. The big clue is you want a right side and a wrong side so that your finished piece, you'll end up being able to work it flat, and you literally just have a right side, and then you hope you don't lose your stitches off the end of your needle when you're throwing your knitting around. I clearly need to have a second little needle stopper on the end here. And the other thing you'll notice is the side that has the sucker stitch. And let's look at this underneath the camera. The side that has the sucker stitch is a little bit sucked in. That's part of what the sucker stitch does. That is a design element. So you will notice that your height right here, let me see if I can zoom out so you can see that better. Your height right here will be taller than your height right here. And that is on purpose. It is part of the shaping of this cowl that I promise is a cowl. Do we have any hints at what you all are making right now? You can leave that in the live chat. I mean, I have a very good time messing with people. I've been good, and I have not said what the construction is, although I think some people have been guessing it, but I'm not telling them if they're right or wrong yet. It is a cowl. Good job, you guys. Proud of you. It's very wearable, is what I'm going to say about Cowltopus, and very fun to knit, which I think a lot of you are experiencing. So again, ask questions if you have any. We are here to help you. We have a no knitter left behind policy. So that is on my needles, Cowltopus. As I said, don't forget about Cowltober. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, I'm posting every day the cowl of the day. I only send out an email about it once in a while. I don't send out an email a day. That is a path to crazy town. Let's see what else I have in here. I showed you that. And, oh, we're going to do that later. Okay. I was just making sure that I got to everything. Off of my needles is a lot of stuff. I've got the November Lola's Choice. Remember I said I'm working on another one. I have the final N Club project is done. Photography is done. The kits are sitting in my car for the N Club, and those kits are waiting for the hurricane to pass. And what might happen tomorrow or the next day is we're going to go through all of them and pull people in the southern states, just pull those aside to send next week and send everybody else's, because we've already printed all of the labels. Everything's packaged up. But we started to put it in my car, and I realized it was not a good time to be sending stuff. So it's sitting there. And by the end of the weekend, for sure, everything will be out, or most of everything will be out, except for the ones that we hold. And that pattern's been through tech. I'm very excited for you N Clubbers to experience that. And it's probably a good time to tell you that there will be another N Club in 2025, and signups will open to members right after that last kit is revealed, and then they'll open to everybody else in the beginning of November. And that is a great holiday gift if you need a holiday gift. The reveal, I believe, is like Sunday the 27th. So we have a ton of time to get those kits to you, which is why I'm quite relaxed about it right now. The other thing that is off my needles is a secret cowl that you have not seen yet, and you will not see till the very end of Cowltober. I believe it will be ready for everybody by then. I could give a tiny hint, and it's basically like if you took Cowltopus and dialed it down to just like its super, super duper basics. It's just like bare bone shaping. That would maybe be what that simple little extra is going to be at the end of the month. And I'm being vague about it on purpose. Some of you might be guessing. Susie and Lois and Jenn, you'll be hearing from me soon about that if you're interested in helping me just make sure everything's right. I'm feeling pretty good about it. But I showed it to my girl and she already placed an order, so she doesn't always like my fancier pieces, so that can tell you who it's going to appeal to, maybe a little bit. It is just real basic and perfect, in my opinion. The Spain project is off my needles. And then finally off my needles is Rocks and Water. And I'm going to tell you about Rocks and Water because it's a really good segue into all of the photos that I have for Ireland. So Rocks and Water is the cowl that I designed for our trip to the Aran Islands. And I designed it based on what my memory of being on the Aran Islands was. I've been on the Aran Islands a few times with other tours. I'd always wanted, every time I leave, I want to go back. I already want to go back again. Like, who wouldn't want to go back? And I'm just taking that off to a little quick change. This is the wide version of Rocks and Water. You can wrap it twice around your neck. You can pull it up as a hood. It's got 3 different options for the water section, and then it's got corrugated ribbing for the rock section. So I can show you in this photo. I think you can almost see all of the options here. So there's the wide version that I was just showing you, and then there is the narrow version. And that corrugated ribbing is called the rocks, and then that Irish mesh lace is called the water. And the 3 different versions of the water section, let's see if I have, I don't know if I have a photo in here of it. Oh, I might have messed that up. Okay, I don't have a photo, but I can show them to you under my camera, almost. So there's 3 different versions. There is choppy water, which choppy water right here is the Irish mesh lace, and then it is lined with a solid stockinette stitch layer, so that if you live in a cold climb and you don't want like just a lace section where you have air coming through to your neck, you can make your cowl quite warm and thick by lining it. That lining is done with Lola's 2-timing technique. There's also calm water section, which is just stockinette stitch. Sorry, I forgot my words. It's stockinette stitch. And then there is choppy water, which is the Irish mesh lace unlined. And what these little swatches are right here, since I'm showing them to you, is these are my design swatches. So as I was designing Rocks and Water, I started with this flat swatch that I was working in the round, which is what all of these crazy little ends are right here. And so I worked the corrugated ribbing, and then with Lola's 2-timing technique, I used Stitch Saver to create 2 different layers of fabric. And then I had the Irish mesh lace layer, and then I did stockinette stitch right here for the back of that layer, and then I joined back together. But what you can see happening right here, and I think it's really fun to show you these swatches, is I was deciding what color or how I wanted to kind of integrate these sections together. And you can see that I ended up using the main color right here with a knit stitch to join the sections together. Whereas I tried with the main color, I tried a purl stitch right here, and I didn't love that little bump. So oftentimes this is what design looks like for me. I do these swatches where I play around and I try different things. It gives me an idea of like how deep I want the ribbing to be and what the techniques will look like for writing up the pattern. So then when I am knitting the actual piece, I am working off of my written pattern that I've written from working my swatch. I'm going to show you something right now that's crazy. That is what I didn't do for Rocks and Water. So originally when I was designing Rocks and Water, I thought that I was going to design it to be worked in the round and have corrugated sections, and then have a 2-color cable section where I was working with both colors at once with these like long floats on the back. And then I was going to have sections of the Irish mesh lace, which I did not work correctly right there, with a layer of stockinette stitch behind you. So you had your yarn on like 2 different needles in this section, and you were sliding back and forth. And it was a path to crazy town. Like this whole little thing, I got done in like 4 hours of watching something very mellow and trying to figure it out and knitting it. And I was like, if it took me 4 hours to knit this, there is no world I am going to be designing this and releasing it to everybody else. So one day, the idea that I came up with for this might end up being something else entirely, because it was kind of a cool concept. But not right now, because I want you all to like me and like knitting my designs. And y'all, no one would have enjoyed this because I wasn't even sometimes it's over the top. So not so much on that one. But it's fun to show you like what didn't happen as I was pulling stuffing together. The yarn that I knit Rocks and Water with that everybody on the retreat got was Kelborn Woolen's Cricket. And Kelborn Woolen's Cricket is 100% merino wool that is spun in Donegal. So it is spun in Ireland out of merino wool, not out of Irish wool. It makes it feel just... Irish wool is lovely, but you really I need anyway, a thick base layer when I wear Irish wool. I'm a little bit sensitive to it. So the merino wool I can wear against my skin. It's got those kind of iconic Donegal neps in there that give you all the different color. It is interestingly called a sport weight yarn, but I really think of it as kind of more of a fingering weight yarn than a sport weight yarn, but you can really see all of those neps in all of the different colors. So this was one of the kits that I did. It's called Corcra. I think it's the only kit that is only color that's still available in the shop. All of the other ones got sold out. And at some point we might do more kits, but not for a while, because the teen that was working for me was winding yarn for them this summer while she was doing other stuff, and now she plays soccer, so I don't have her as much, and I don't have as much kind of labor on hand to do projects like that. So when we get into the photos of Ireland, which we are about to get into next, and we get to the rock walls, I'm going to show you those photos, and I'm probably going to stop for a second and hold Rocks and Water back up, because I think you'll really get where the inspiration for this came from once you see the photos of the rock walls. It's my favorite place on earth, and there's so many photos of rock walls coming your way. So do you guys want to get into Ireland together? Are you all ready? Are you knitting? Are you having fun? I'll take that moment. Oh, I see that somebody's local yarn store carries Cricket, so she can go and get it there. One of the reasons I did kits is because the way I designed it with those 4 different colors for the different sections of water, it kind of made sense to wind them down. But you could certainly knit Rocks and Water with just 2 colors, or like use 3 colors and have fun. Okay, let's get into this trip. So I was honored and lucky to have 30 knitters. Well, one of them was me, or Lola. So 29 knitters joined me on this trip. And we met in the Dublin airport, and some of us had gotten to Dublin the day before. Some people arrived the day of. So the goal the first day of any tour in my mind is to keep you people awake for the whole day, because the best way to get over jet lag when you go to Europe is to stay awake the first day and not take a lot of naps. So that was my goal for the group. So the first thing that we did was go to the Irish stud and Japanese gardens, and we learned about the Irish stud, which is a racehorse stud. They basically have studs. That's some manly horses that they then bring female horses in. I don't need to explain this all to you. You are grown up women and gentlemen and you understand how these breeding things work. But we had a lot of giggling. It was kind of like the perfect thing to do with Lola on day one, go to the Irish stud, right? So this next photo, I'm just going to let you take that in for a second. And Lola is snickering over here on her side of the camera. And go back to that there. And the other thing at the Irish stud, besides the horses, which were just absolutely adorable, were the gardens were amazing. And y'all know I love a garden so much. And it was this, we were deep into September and everything was just lush and gorgeous. And there was a Japanese garden on site that you could kind of walk through, and you kind of walked through the journey of one man's life through the garden. It was so well done. When we were done at the gardens, we moved on to Dromoland Castle for 2 nights and definitely started on a high note at the castle. And I think it's important to start high with the trip and make sure that everybody's really comfortable and well taken care of. And we had a phenomenal first meal together. And I woke up very early the next morning because I wanted to get into their walled castle garden before anybody else was awake. And it did not disappoint. It's our castle, and I love everything about this garden, from the patina on the rock to like the manicured pieces to just kind of like the wild dahlias growing along the walls. I could cry just thinking about it. So beautiful and well done. And then here was just some rock wall I found on that morning with the perfect ivy growing on it. I'm going to try not to make this take too long. Then that afternoon, we took a hike with Tony Kirby in the Burren. And the Burren is very interesting because the Burren is basically, the Aran Islands are an extension of the Burren. The Burren kind of drops off into the ocean on the west coast of Ireland. South of Galway is the Burren area. And it is all these incredible layers of rock with little tiny things growing out of them. And I wanted everybody to experience the Burren, because I think then they would really understand the Aran Islands and how all of that land used to be together. So I found a gentleman who adores the Burren and the Aran Islands, Tony Kirby, and he took us on a guided hike. And we were all like lying down on the ground, taking pictures of tiny little heathers. Some people were sneaking photos of their knitting into things. You can see all of us, we would like scatter and look and then come back together. And Tony was reading us poetry and making fun of us a little bit as we were like, ooh, 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 what's this? And he'd be like, you found something, did ya? Like we were amazing for finding something. He was super funny. And you can see it's kind of desolate and yet it's magical at the same time. And he was the perfect person to explore it with us. Here's a pair of my larch peds being worn, and had to get a quick snap of that. And there is our buddy Tony. Every time I took a picture of him, he was talking. And y'all know that when we talk, we don't look very good in photos. So this was the best one I could find of what I had of him. He was such a sweet gent. And he wrote a book about hiking in the Burren and Aran Islands that I did buy, that is available if anybody's going there at some point. After that, we went to the little town of Ennis and had a wee pint and kind of found a bathroom and enjoyed some knitting in a pub before going back to our castle for a lovely last evening by the fire. And I'll admit, when I start any trip, I start my trip with this like, I'll sleep when I die kind of mentality. Like, I don't want to miss any time on my trip. So the first bunch of nights I was like up late and loving it. And towards the end of the trip, I remembered that I do need to sleep. So I got more sleep in towards the end. But such a fabulous time at the castle. And this is the whole group on the last morning before we embarked to the Aran Islands. And I'm so glad that I snagged everybody together to get a photo of us all with our castle in the background. And when we left Drummond, we had the biggest treat of all because we went to a Michelin star restaurant called the Homestead that was not a Michelin star restaurant when we booked it, but a dear friend of mine, Sophie, who is a dyer from Cianach Yarns, she and her husband opened this restaurant, I think last summer. Her husband was working in other kitchens and was kind of ready to start his own thing, and this space came up and they decided to jump on it, and with 9 months they had been awarded a Michelin star. So when I'm getting like the shivers telling the story. So when we booked like, Sophie, we want to see your yarns, and she was like, hey, do you guys want to have lunch at my place when you do that? We said yes, and then all of a sudden we got to have this like amazing lunch, and it was one of those like not white tablecloth kind of experiences, just like really good food made by real people who care about their food and the environment they live in, and so much of it was from the area. It was so good. And we were lucky enough to have Sophie tell us about her yarns. She's actually not dyeing very much right now because she has 2 small children and this incredibly successful restaurant all of a sudden. So we got to have a talk with Sophie about her yarns and about natural dyeing, and everybody was just so inquisitive and asked the best questions, and we all bought yarn. I bought some for you, don't worry, I'll show that to you in a little bit. And then we got to hang out in the restaurant. I'm obsessed with her lamps, so you're going to see a bunch of those because I want them in our downstairs. And I might have to fight Max for it, but it's going to happen because I just like love, I love to make baskets. So I just think it's like the funnest way to use some baskets upside down as lamps. And here is one table all ready for their meal to come to them. You can just feel the magic in this place. Here's another room full, and then there was a third room with more lights, and there's Andrea taking a picture down in the corner right there. I did not take any photos of my food this trip, but I did take a picture of my risotto that was so good with wild mushrooms on top and homemade cheese, and it was perfect. And here's me and Sophie at the end saying goodbye to each other. I think one of the awkward things about doing tours like this is you're like, hey, and it's like this intense 3 hours and you're like, bye. So that was a hard goodbye for me because it would have been lovely to spend a whole day together and really, really catch up. But we just had that quick time. And there was one last photo I got of their kitchen garden right outside of the cottage where the restaurant is before we took off. But if any of you are in the Burren area, kind of near, the Cliffs of Moher, I would highly suggest getting a reservation there for lunch or dinner and plan some time to just kind of be in their space because it's really just a superb spot to slow down. And then we went to Doolin and we got on a ferry with full stomachs and we went to the Aran Islands and we went to the island of Inishmore, which is the biggest of the 3 islands. And we could see the Cliffs of Moher from the Cliffs of Moher from the boat, which was pretty special. You can actually see that little hole in the rock, that natural bridge down at the end right there if you look closely. We all got a little wind blown. I like to stay on the top of ferries whenever I can. Lots of smiley faces heading to the most incredible place on earth. It was cold. We got to wear our wool, which who doesn't want to wear their wool on a knitting trip, right? We got to the Aran Islands and there was lichen on rocks everywhere. And I like some lichen. So photos of lichen. Photos of snails. There were so many photos of snails when I went to look at photos to sort through them for you. So this one kind of won as the photo of snails. And on the first day after we got settled, I guess it was the next day after that ferry trip, we went up to Dunangus, and we had just one of those glorious days that I tried to tell everybody we ordered for them, but it was just lucky. Because we have a hike up to Dunangus and you can kind of appreciate that path going up the hill to this ancient fort. And we got to the top and on the way, rocks. Start to look at these rock walls. You'll see more of them. we get to the top, and it's just this glorious, glorious day. And people weren't up there. We got up there quite early, and we got to see some rainbows in the distance. And there were just kind of moments to meditate and be and take in this ancient, ancient place together. We did some photos of rocks and water, which was funny because it's very hard to herd all the cats together. And then we tried to get some group shots with all those cliffs in the background. And this one became more about the rock walls and the cliffs, and I'd say less about all of our smiling faces, but trust me, we were smiling. And there's kind of a close-up of that wall behind us. And there is Una and Anne-Marie, two of our guides on the Aran Islands. Anne-Marie was with us the whole time. She is the one on the right. And then Una is from Inishmore. She's on the left. They were both very happy with the weather as well. We were all thrilled. And here we are walking back down the trail. So you kind of get an idea of that same walk going back down. And then we get to go to the second part, because after that, some of the crazy people on my trip like to cold water swim, which, okay, not me. I'm not the cold water swimmer. I was the photographer of the cold water swimmers, okay? So people stripped down. They had various clothing with them to wear to go swimming, and they jumped right into the Galway Bay. And they loved it. I didn't get one. There's a photo of everybody kind of facing us and smiling, but I was just taking photos of them laughing and dipping themselves. That's Olwen in the red bathing suit there. And Marie went as well. I did it one time when I was on the Aran Islands, and my feet didn't get warm again for like a week afterwards. And oh, look at this photo way in the upper left-hand corner. I think I spy a rainbow with my little eye up in that corner. So sweet. Then we did some kind of marine. Stephanie rolled up her pants and was looking for things in the water. There's Julie Beth coming out with her towel holder, ready to greet her with a towel. So much fun. We got really lucky. And then when we came back, we had music at lunch, which was also amazing. We had live music being sung to us while we ate lunch. And then Una taught a class, and she designed a really special project for everybody with cables that are unique to her family on Inishmore that have been passed down from generations. And here she is with that project that she designed for everybody. It's this little sweater for a wine bottle with a hat. And a few people finished it. I think Celeste back there finished hers first, and she actually won a bottle of wine for finishing hers first. I have not cast mine on, but I do have the pattern, and I'm going to at some point. And now we get into what the view was from the back of our hotel. Rock walls everywhere. Do you see what I mean about rocks and water? You'll see it even more when I get to a few other photos, but they're just like rocks walls as far as the eye can see. We did bring our hammocks, me and Steph, which was kind of a joke because there aren't a lot of trees on the Aran Islands, but we were able to hang them on our deck. And we had one day where we actually, in the afternoon, after all that stuff I just told you about, Doug Angus, music at lunch, knitting class, and then I got in my hammock, and I only got out of my hammock when I had to go to the bathroom. And otherwise I was like, I'm in my hammock right now. And it was amazing. And then that night we went to see old time music at a pub nearby, and it was such a cool trad sesh because there were like three generations there, from like grandma to granddaughter to mom, and there were lots of different instruments and people were joining in. Some of the people in our crew sang, which was absolutely beautiful, and it was a really special evening, and I'm glad that I chose not to sleep that night. The next day, it was quite stormy, but we geared up in all of our warm clothing and our dry clothing and went to Inishmore, to Una's island, and had a tour around the island, and then got to hang out at her cafe. And this is a photo on Inishmore of the rock walls as we were going on our tour. We got to go out to the shipwreck, and Una told us the story of the shipwreck, which is pretty incredible. I think her father helped save some of the people off of the ship. So she kind of had like firsthand experience hearing about the shipwreck. Then at Una's, we had cake. This was my gluten-free cake. It was very, very good. And while we had lots of tea and cake and sandwiches, we got to learn a bit about the Irish wool being saved from I can't remember her name right now, but her company is Joyce Country Wool. And I'm sorry, I tried to have everything written down and I forget her first name. She traveled all the way from over by Connemara to come to us to talk about wool while we had lunch for like an hour. It was absolutely amazing. And we all learned a ton from her. And saw Andrea's in the comments, so maybe she'll remember her name. I remembered her farm's name, which is Joyce Country Wool, so you could look up that. That was a very cool experience to have her share with us while we snacked and knit. And then here's all of our tour guides with Julie Beth in the middle. So she's honorary tour guide in these photos. That's Anne Marie over on the left, sporting a fun little cloche. And over on the right is Una, and then Julie Beth in the middle, and then Olwen. And they were all so fabulous. Anne Marie was with us the whole time, and Una and Olwen were with us when we were on the islands, and they really, really showed us their home so beautifully. Here is a wall of Aran stitches at Cafe Una. And here's a photo of the front of the cafe where we hung out and learned about wool and ate really good cake. And here are some very cold knitters trying to stand out of the wind while we waited for the ferry to come back. Just, I wanted to give you a little bit of the realness of what it was like, right? We didn't have all blue skies and sunny days. And then that night we did some Irish step dancing and learned some basics from Olwen's husband, Michael. And Steph was a great ringleader that night, getting everybody up and moving and dancing. Super duper fun. And then the next morning, no rest for us. We had a tour from one tip of Inishmore to the other with a woman, Deirdre, who is a spiritual guide, and we did Tai Chi kind of overlooking the sea, which was absolutely amazing. And we learned a little bit more about the Celtic mystical side of the island, which was really, really interesting. And this was the day that I just leaned into finding the walls and falling in love with the walls. And these are the photos that I want to show you. And then I want to stop and hold up rocks and water, because I think with those photos, you really see those vertical columns of the rock walls, and then like those little chinks in the rock walls being that Irish mesh lace stitch. So if I go back to that, I mean, maybe you'll think I'm crazy, but you see those vertical rocks down at the bottom? And then all of the like air that you can see through, these are all dry stacked walls with rocks that are kind of coming up in the fields as they're building up the fields with seaweed. So the island is completely rock, and all of the grass that you see there and all of the soil has been built up with seaweed decomposing over the years. Absolutely amazing. And then when we were done with that tour, we went to lunch at another place up by Dun Angus that, for those of you who know Hayao Miyazaki, who did movies like Spirited Away and Howl's Magic Castle, he lived here for a while. This was his house. So I thought that would be kind of cool to show you that. And everywhere along the way, and I didn't get too many photos of it, we were knitting. So here we are knitting, and we're learning from Deirdre a bit. And then Andrea and I and some friends went on a hike with the Bickers. We went on a hike out to something called the Wormhole, and it was a like 6.5 mile hike from Dun Angus to get back to the hotel. It poured rain most of the time. We had a great time walking to the Wormhole. I fell in love with this green, mossy lichen stuff growing in the rocks from some old seawater. Expect to have a dyer sent this photo at some point because I want this on yarn. Look at that. It's just like so lively and vibrant. And this is not edited at all. It's just what you see is what you get. And then here's the wormhole. And the wormhole was this super cool natural formation. So that is not like a man-made swimming pool. That is a super deep cavern that when the tide comes in, the water comes kind of up through it and crashes up and then sucks back down again. I think they had like the Red Bull diving event there a few years ago. I think it's a place that like really experienced divers go diving in the wormhole. It's a thing. I will never be doing that, but it was pretty cool to see the wormhole. We hung out there for a while. And then this is, I don't know if you can see that kind of like rock around the wormhole is all kind of like eaten away and kind of corroded by the seawater. So this is what that rock looked like close up. I just loved the texture of that so much. Here was a kind of impossible anemone growing in the rocks. So pretty. Also going to a dyer one day, that photo. And then we started on our walk back. And we walked back and saw just miles and miles and miles of rock walls as we climbed up over the hill in the rain to get back down to the other side of the island. It's not a huge island. I mean, we went from tip to tip that day and then walked most of it. And I love it. I love it so much. I know this is a lot of rocks, you guys. Bear with me. Also some wildlife on the island. We did see sheep, which I showed you earlier. There's some cows and then a horse and I who had like a little romance. If you look at my glasses closely on that photo in the left, you can see how rainy it was because my windshield wipers were not working at that moment. And then it was time for us to get on the ferry and go back to Dunloe. And here is the ferry coming in to take us away. And there we are. I believe that's Inishmore in the distance as we are heading back to Dunloe to rejoin our bus. And there is the Cliffs of Moher again. And then at this point, we said goodbye. I hope this isn't too long. I am chatting away here. We said goodbye to, I think, 6 or 7 people in our group. And the rest of us went on for a few more days in Killarney. And on the way to Killarney, we stopped at Kerry Woolen Mills, where I had been before, and bought wool to make a coat. And I wanted to buy wool to make another coat, and I did. I bought wool to make myself a coat and Bella a coat. And this is one of the oldest working mills in Ireland. And you really get an idea of how old it is from that original building there. And they had a lovely little shop, and they walked us through the mill so that we could see how they make yarn and then how they weave that into different products. And they had some bigger industrial looms that make large blankets. I just fell in love with all of the rainbow colors on this warp. So beautiful. And then we went to our hotel that night, and I'm clearly not being like, and then I had a cup of coffee, and then I had some whiskey. Then the next day, because we'd be here for like 20 hours, the next day we went on a tour that I had always wanted to go on and never had the opportunity to do, which was to go on a boat ride through the 3 lakes of Killarney and then hike the Gap of Dunloe. And the way that we did that was all of us went on the boats through the 3 lakes of Killarney, and then some people got on horse and pony traps and took those back down towards the hotel to the bus, and then the rest of us hiked. It was about like a 7.5 mile hike from the lakes down through the Gap of Dunloe. So these photos show you this incredible boat ride where we got to see these were some fishing boats actually lined up. I think they were getting ready for a big fishing competition. Along the way on the lakes, there were gorgeous wildflowers, and a few times on this one time we had to get out of the boats and like walk a little bit and then get back into the boats again. And here we are in our boat ride with our guide Colm, and he was quite the birder and helped us find the white-tailed eagles that have been reintroduced to the Killarney park system. So the white-tailed eagle was the largest predator bird in Killarney, and they went extinct, and they brought back some eaglets from Norway. And there's one little guy right up there at the top of the tree. They like to sit on dead wood, we learned. It was the best day, and we got very lucky in our boat that Colm figured out that we really loved birds and that we had a few avid birders on our boat, and he slowed down, and we ended up getting to see all 8 eagles that were in the lake, which was pretty special. So here's Steph and Julie Beth and Andrea with Colm kind of getting a selfie at the end to thank him. He was freaking awesome. We loved him. White-tailed sea eagle. Thank you, Andrea. I just lost the word sea. And then we started our hike back, and we had lots of sheep as we walked back. We had happy people. I think some of us might have had an Irish coffee before our 7.5-mile hike. You feel that in this photo a little bit. But we are ready to take this hike. And there we are with the gap of Dunloe behind us. This is just some of us, not everybody. It was whoever was up there at the same time. And then we came back down. So many photos taken of rocks and moss, and it was just like so rich and lush and amazing. You can feel all of the 50 shades of green or 40 shades of green, 50 shades of gray. That's how that goes. And then our last day on our way back to Dublin, we had a superb class with Carol Feller at her studio in Cork. And we had to kind of cram into the upstairs space, but we totally made it work. And it was excellent to see my buddy Carol and learn about the Irish wool industry and making yarn in Ireland. And also she did some cable work with everybody. And then the last place we stayed, I didn't get a picture of it on the outside, which was really silly. I don't even remember the name of it anymore. Oh, the Carlton House. It was like a big, fancy old house. Not really a castle, I wouldn't say, like Drummond. But it was quite fancy. Here's Steffi, kind of relaxing. She was in her element there. And I think I have one last photo just to kind of say goodbye to this amazing trip that we had together to the Aran Islands. And thank you so much for listening to me tell you all about that trip. I love sharing my travels with you. I know I try to get it all in there and really just give you an essence, like a feel of what it's like to explore. And, you know, we all took it in on different levels. There was tons of knitting happening in between things. There was time to really like sink our needles into the projects that we had, like Una's project. There was time to work on that. We were asking each other questions, lots of talk about knitting at every meal, but then like so much more about the place and really getting to land in and not be like jumping on a bus every day for a different thing, which is my least favorite way to travel. I really prefer when you're not having to pack up your bags, but your bed is in the same place and you're able to kind of like land into something a little bit more. And that's my goal for travel, especially with y'all. So I did bring back some yarn, so want to do like the yarn part of this, and then we'll talk about future plans for things, and then I'll tell you a bit about like sewing, watching, reading, eating, and then we'll say goodbye. Okay? So yarn. I got yarn from Sophie of Sienach Yarn, and I got yarn that is for you all, because what happens to me with yarn is I fall in love with yarns, but Sophie is not dying anymore. So if I was to knit something with these 2 gorgeous skeins of yarn, and then I showed it to you, everybody would want to knit with this yarn too, because you know I'm going to love it. And then Sophie would get all these emails and she'd have to say no, and it would be awkward. So instead, this yarn is going to be the giveaway for this live. So I'm going to give you a prompt at the very end of this live. Don't say anything now. I'm not even telling you what it is. And what this yarn is this one skein is absolutely beautiful. 75% blue face Leicester, 25% mid-brown Masham. It's a fingering weight yarn. So there's 400 meters to 100 grams. And this is dyed with logwood. Absolutely beautiful. It's like if I put it underneath the camera so that you could see it, it's like this lovely dusty ashy lavender. And then paired with it is a 72% kid mohair and 28% mulberry silk. And this one is naturally dyed with logwood iron and logwood powder. So you get that kind of like variegated bits in there. And these two yarns are going to be perfect for the project that I'm going to be revealing at the end of the month. So whoever wins them, I hope that you knit that in with these yarns, because that's what I got it for, but I just know it doesn't make sense because y'all will be like, I want that. I already explained why. Anyway, this other insanely gorgeous skein is going to be the giveaway from last month's live, where I left you all a prompt about books you were reading that you thought that I might like to read. So at the very end, I will announce the winner. And this stunning skein of yarn is a non-superwash Corriedale, and it is dyed with goldenrod and indigo. So one of the things I love about Sophie's dye technique is she, with natural dyes, has gotten this kind of ability to wash with color. So they're not like blotchy, but it's also not just a solid. Like she's kind of mixing the two together. So you end up with these like more yellowy areas and more like bluey, greeny areas, which I think is really unique for a natural dyer. And I'm so thrilled for her and her restaurant and her Michelin star, but I also hope she gets to dye again one day, because she is really, really good at it. And clearly good at everything she does. Go, Sophie. It's so fun to see your friends thrive, right? The next yarn I have to show you, I'm very excited about. I wasn't going to take it, but Laura at Carol Feller's studio was like, have you knit with Diaz yet? And I'm like, no, I haven't knit with Diaz yet. And I know Carol was wearing a sweater in it last year at Rhinbeck that I coveted. And so she was like, well, just take one skein and play with it and see what you think. And I want it to be a sweater so badly. I also need another sweater. Like I need a hole in the head right now. I actually need to like finish up some projects and finish up some things. But I'm going to swatch with this at some point. So I am not going to give you this skein of yarn. This one is for me to play with. And this is, let's see, it's a really interesting blend. It's 86% merino and 14% mohair. So what that mohair does is kind of like keep the structure and give a little bit more like bounce and density to the merino, but the merino keeps it really soft so that it feels good against your skin. And the mohair is a really nice quality mohair, so I don't feel any kind of toothiness from it like you might feel with the mohair, but it's got that kind of Donegal nep in it that Donegal Yarns is so good at doing. Look at that, that's so gorgeous. Let's get right up in that business. Is that pretty? So Carol sells this yarn on her website. I know that she has some clubs that use this yarn. I think this was designed for a club of hers in the past. And I have an idea for a sweater that it might work in, which is why I was like, okay, I'll take a skein and I'll play with it. But just kind of as an interesting thing, if I grab the Cricut, you quickly can see that both of these yarns are milled at the same mill. They have that same kind of iconic Donegal nep to them, right? But they're different. This is a single ply. This one is plied, and it's kind of got that like thick, thin thing going on within the strands, which is quite interesting. But they're cousins, these two yarns. Love that. Okay. Where are we now? We did yarn. Oh, things coming up. Can I tell you about things coming up? So one little teasy bit is I'm not doing a ton of teaching in 2025. I'm doing some, but not a gob's worth. And one of the events that I did say yes to that I am doing is April 24th to 27th. And it is Patty Lyon's retreat called Affinity. And it is going to be at the Otsaga Resort, which is in Cooperstown, New York. I believe that Patty is announcing that tomorrow. So you heard it here from me first. She did announce the teachers yesterday. So it's going to be me and Zandy Peters and Natalie Warner. And I believe that we're all teaching one class. So when you come to that retreat, you get to take a class with everybody once, or maybe it's like 2 out of the 3 teachers. And then there's tons of events, and we'll just be like filthy knitting everywhere. I'm super excited about it because Cooperstown is like less than 2 hours for me. And I love a retreat when I can like get up early and drive there and just like sink myself into it and be there and then be able to stay as long as possible on the other end and still drive home and not have it be like insanely late at night. And y'all know how much I adore Patty Lyons and also love Zandy. I don't know Natalie very well, but I'm sure I'm going to love her by the end of the weekend because I've heard awesome things about her. So pretty excited about that. There will be kind of rolling signups for it. So if you are on my newsletter, we're going to open up signups, I think first to Patty's newsletter and then all the teachers' newsletters before it's like open to the public. So if you're on my email list, you will hear when signups are open and all the information like pricing and getting roommates and all that jazz will be out. So that is going to be a really fun, big retreat. I'm hoping lots of you can go and we can all be there together. And outside of teaching my class, I'm free to hang out. It's a nice thing about not running a retreat, right? Is I get to play with y'all a little more outside of my work. The name of the retreat is Affinity. So it's AFFINKNITY. That is the name of it. And it's on my Instagram page right now, on my Facebook page, because I just posted about it the other day. And Cooperstown, New York, April 24th to 27th. Pretty excited. Registration's supposed to open end of the month. Patty's very busy right now, so she's working on that, getting that done. I'm not allowed to read the comments, but I just saw that somebody asked how many people. I think it's around 100, Susie. I'm not sure if it's a little more than that or a little less than that, but I think it's in that range, which is a range that it needs to be to have that many teachers. So I'm going to just say that that's what it is. The other thing, let's see if I can find where it is. Max put it somewhere. Oh, there it is. Ha ha. Who's going to New York State Sheep and Wool next weekend? So otherwise known as Rhinbeck, New York State Sheep and Wool is like the largest wool festival in the United States. And it is about 4 hours from my house on the other side of the Catskills. And I will be going down Wednesday and coming back on Monday. So I have a nice long time there. Quite excited about it. And on Saturday of New York State Sheep and Wool, we are going to have a meetup. We've been having a meetup at New York State Sheep and Wool for the past bunch of years, and the meetup is going to be at 3 p.m. this year, and it is going to be in the same place it's been the last few years, which is in the covered table area next to the beer tent at the Mulberry Street Entrance. And I do have a thread in my Ravelry group, and when this live is over, I'll give you links to everything below, but I have a thread in my Ravelry group that has a map of where we're going to be meeting up. A few other designers are probably going to show up as well. I know Patty's going to be there. I'm not sure who else is going to make it. But if you want to know that you're going to run into me and not worry about finding me at some other time during the festival, then come to the meetup. You'll get to see friends, people you've maybe never met in real life. So 3 p.m. at right by the Mulberry Street Entrance. If you look at your map and you look for the Mulberry Street Entrance, you'll see where the beer tent is. We're right next to that. There's lots of tables. It's covered if it's raining, and plenty of room to spread out and hang out and bring food if you're having a snack, or it's sometimes 3 p.m. is the time to sit down for a little while. What I love about 3 p.m. is we used to meet up at 4 p.m. and then you'd see something someone bought, but there wouldn't be enough time to run back across the fairgrounds to go get it because it stops at 5 p.m. But 3 p.m. lets you hang out for a little while, take a breath, and then by 3:45, 4 o'clock, meetup's over, and you have a whole hour to go find that thing that you hadn't seen. I had that with some stitch markers last year, and they were sold out by the time I got there. Aran knows what I'm talking about if she's watching right now, because it's my favorite stitch marker, Aran, that you gave me at that meetup last year. Thank you. So I look forward to seeing many of you there. Lots of hugs. Don't be shy when you see me. I don't know you. And if you know me, I was never going to be a politician in the past life, so I probably won't remember your name. But if you tell me where we met, I'll be like, oh yeah, I totally remember you. I'll probably remember what knitwear you were wearing then, or like what yarn you were knitting with. But I might not recognize you, but I really do love saying hi to everybody. So just stop me and say hi. And the weirdest thing that happens to me at Rhinbeck is when I hear people talking about me behind my back. Like, and they're not in a bad way, but they're like, there's a Laura. Like, just come say hi. Hi. So fun. Yay. Okay. List. Sewing. I got to sew a lot before I left for the Aran Islands, and I sewed two things in particular. One, this shirt that I'm wearing for Cowltopus, and then you can see the shirt right here. Those pants that I'm wearing, I needed for the N Club project. And they are another pair of Ann Tilley's magic pants, but they are made in a slightly stretchy fine whale corduroy that I got from my friend's fabric shop, Frankie Rose. I'll give you links to everything, I promise. And so these magic pants, those buckles up at the top, I talked about them in my last live. That whole flap folds down, and there's like an elastic bit at the front, which you can actually see in that photo to the right, because I'm kind of pulling down on the pants a little bit. So they're very comfortable, especially on the Aran Islands when I ate too much for dinner. They just kind of like grow with you, and then you can tighten things up again. And that flap makes the pocket bag, which is absolutely perfect. So I made these a little bit more cropped than my last pair, which worked really well with the corduroy because the fabric's a little bit more stiff, so it kind of holds its shape at the bottom. And I am very, 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 very happy with this pair of pants. And I already ordered fabric from my friend to make a third pair for Spain in this like really kind of deep green that is a tencel, so it's going to be a little bit drapier. And I can tell that these are going to be like my pant uniform for the winter. I love them so much. And then this is my butt shot. One of the things I love about the magic pants is how they make my butt look. So there you have it right there. I managed in all of these photos, those photos have the N Club project in them, but I managed to keep it out of every photo, like crop, so you didn't get to see it at all. Shh, super secret. But when you see those photos at the end of the month, you'll be like, oh, I remember those pants. She already told us about those. The pattern is the Magic Pants pattern by Ann Tilley, and I'll give you links after this is over. In the show notes, I give you links to everything. I absolutely promise. Thanks, Susie. I saw that you just responded to that. It's hard to not read everything. In terms of books I'm listening to while I'm doing things, I have been listening to The Soul of an Octopus by Montgomery. I am savoring that book. I don't want it to end anytime soon. I think I have about 4 hours left. And because we have this whole Cowltopus to knit together, I just am like leaning into it. And it's my little bits at a time, especially when I'm driving into town. I can't listen to it if I'm doing something else because I want to concentrate on it. So it's like when I'm knitting or when I'm driving, but not when I'm like doing computer work or something because I get distracted easily. In terms of reading, you all gave me awesome suggestions for books to read at bedtime. They were a little too good. They kept me awake a few times. So one person suggested Love at First Book by Jenn McKinlay, which is set in Ireland and a romance and about book writer and a bookstore. Ate that sucker right up. Thank you so much. I believe that was Michelle in the Woods who suggested that. Loved it, Michelle. Thank you. And then another one of you, and I didn't write down who it was, suggested Summer at Tiffany by Marjorie Hart. And that is about two girls during World War I who moved to New York City for the summer. They're two like college girls, and they moved from the Midwest to New York City, and they managed to get jobs at Tiffany's as like couriers. And it was fun. It was kind of like historical. It had a little bit of a romance element. It had a lot about New York City at that time, which was quite interesting, like the plane that flew into the Empire State Building. And I'd heard about that a little bit, but it was interesting to kind of get that on the ground take of that experience. So I very much enjoyed Summer at Tiffany, also a very quick read. And now I have queued up The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, which looks quite interesting. And I don't know a lot about it, so I can't quite suggest it yet, but that's what I've got next on my list for reading. And then watching. So I know I said we're supposed to be watching like The Secrets of the Octopus from National Geographic and My Octopus Teacher, which I already watched during the pandemic, but I want to watch again. But someone in like the Facebook group or Ravelry group or both mentioned Resident Alien, and they were like, it totally has to do with octopuses. Why is that not on your reading and watching list? And so I started watching Resident Alien, and I was like a bunch of episodes in and still like, there's no octopuses. These people are steering me wrong. And finally, when I got to episode 7 of season 1, there was an octopus. It all makes sense now. And now I'm hooked on Resident Alien. And there's a whopping 3 seasons with like 12 episodes in each season. So I don't know when I'm going to rewatch those other things, because now I have, thank you so much. I needed a show to just like make me laugh and also keep me in my knitting chair in the evening and not like distracted by other things. So if you haven't watched Resident Alien and you like something that is very funny and also a little irreverent, tiny bit dirty, you know Lola loves that. And I guess it has science fiction, but the science fiction aspect is like way dialed down. It's not over the top if you're not a sci-fi lover. So love that. And then this weekend, my girl is coming home, which is very exciting. So she can choose yarn for her project, which I shall not tell you what it is. And I've told her that we're watching Octopussy together, whether she likes it or not. So we're doing that. And then the other thing we're doing is I got us a new game called Sagrada Familia, or maybe it's called La Sagrada, and it's based on Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. And it's like an adult game. It's got a lot of different colored dice. There's a lot of strategy. We played it a little bit in September when I was with her in the Amish country, and we're both very excited to play that together again. So that is on the docket for this weekend, along with a bunch of hiking and being together. And hopefully my parents are good on the other end of things. We'll get to hang out on Zoom with them a little bit and catch up, which would be really nice. I don't have anything to tell you about eating because I've been traveling and not cooking at all. And I made rice. But I don't think you want me to tell you about making rice. So we're going to skip the eating part of this log. And I'm going to wrap it up. So if you have any questions, things that I have not gotten to, if you could throw them into the chat right now while I tell you about the winner from last month's live, when next month's live is going to be, and then what the prompt is for the giveaway of this amazing yarn right here. So last month I asked you for book recommendations. Phenomenal. Sorry, I read and while I was talking. So phenomenal book recommendations. The winner, funnily, is Michelle in the Woods, who suggested Love at First Book by Jenn McKinlay. And her comment was, this was my first Laura and Lola live. So much fun. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the release of the MCAL tomorrow. I've never participated in an MCAL from Laura and Lola. As far as book recommendations, I recently finished Love at First Book by Jenn McKinlay, set in Ireland. Just saying. So thank you for that, Michelle. Get in touch with me and you are winning this absolutely stunning skein of yarn that Sophie dyed. So lucky you, because this is, are you here, Michelle? I love it when you're here and you win. Woohoo! So Michelle, email me, laura@nelkindesigns.com with your address. And I will send this to you. Congratulations. I love that. It doesn't always happen that the person is here. Yay. I see a question as a request, since this is Cowltober, maybe a Lola quickie vid on best binding off in the round. So binding off in the round, it really depends if you want to have an elastic bind off or not. So we'll be discussing one when we get to the, I don't want to give anything away, but when we get to the end of Cowltopus, we'll be talking about a bind off that is the right bind off. There's actually 2 bind offs in there depending on what version you do. So I'll have 2 for you that I think are going to be really helpful. I think that's Juliana Hay that is asking that question. And the other thing we'll be going over is how to like have a perfect little join into the round so that it looks very, very smooth and neat paint from the beginning of the bind off to the end of the bind off, so it's harder to find that beginning of the round. So all of those tricks will be in the Cowltopus videos, and I'll probably do like little breakout ones on Instagram for Instagram, Facebook Reels things. So great. Yeah, that last stitch is exactly what we're going to be going over. So thanks for saying that, because we are on it. Andrea would like to know if I will be carving an octopus themed gourd this year. No, but I will be looking for a photo of one on the internet and sharing it as if I carved that octopus themed gourd. Bella and I are going to be going gourd shopping on Saturday, so maybe we'll spray paint an octopus on there. But no carving over here. I can't be trusted with knives. I use knitting needles. What are you talking about? I don't know what my prompt is going to be. Oh, it's going to be a good one. All right, because we'll see what you say. Your comment below to win this yarn is for you to take a guess on what you think Cowltopus is going to be, like what you think the shaping of Cowltopus is going to be. It doesn't have to be real. You can just make me laugh if you want to make me laugh. I am good with that. The prize is spectacular. Don't leave that until I say goodbye to you. Our next live is either going to be a quick one on October 30th because the pattern is going to be ready for you that I want to release, or it's going to be after I get back from Spain, but before I leave for Thanksgiving in Florida, which is a small window. So I will let you know that towards the end of the month, but save October 30th right now, which is a Wednesday. We'll see. I'm allowed to try. And I'm also allowed to be like, that's insane, I can't do that, but I'm around then. Thank you all so much. I hope everybody stays safe, stays healthy, checks in with each other. I will be checking in with my dear friends down in Florida, sending all the love and light and peace to everybody. Also, don't forget to vote. Thank you very much for doing that. Happy knitting.